Welcome to another episode of Foresight TV. You are going to look and say, what's Fara doing on there? Well, Fara is back, and we've got such an amazing story to tell you about, and we are going to dream together about what can be for senior living. But we are going to start with this.
Hey guys, Steve Moran here.
So first off, I have to tell you, I get sort of teased about it, but the little cartoon that's got my glasses crooked, they actually look pretty good today. But when I was at the Empath conference down in Santa Barbara earlier this week, Seth Godin was one of the speakers. He was on a telecast, and I noticed that his glasses were just a little bit crooked too. So I guess he must be copying me. What do you think? Well, maybe it's the other way around, or maybe it's just accidental. So Fara, you have more fans than I think anybody else in the industry. And a year ago, almost exactly a year ago, we did a Foresight TV. It just were 11 months ago, really, because it was on New Year's Day last year. We did a Foresight TV where you talked about this terrible, terrible medical tragedy that hit you, that was going to ultimately end up in your death, right? So what are you doing here?
Well, it was such a journey to be given a frontotemporal degeneration diagnosis, along with several others. And so I was a fighter. Everything in me that, hopefully the good and the bad, that people know of me, my tenacity, my seventh generation pioneer Texan, I couldn't accept it. And I was in that phase of, I need a second opinion. When I went for my second opinion, they said, well, we refer our complex cases to your doctor. So I said, well, what kind of second opinion is this? And they said, you will be followed by her. And I, again, refused to accept it. And I love this part of my story because it reminds me of what we do every day in senior living. I literally went online and I asked Google, where is the #1 center for neurology and diagnostic neurology? And that was at UCSF, University of California, San Francisco. And I filled out the inquiry form. Within 45 minutes, I received an intake call, and they said, send us all of your medical records. We only accept certain patients. So I sort of held my breath, and I sent in all of my medical records. About 10 days later, a nurse called me, and she said, Fara, she goes, I have good news for you. And this was about the end of March of this year, and all of my neurological symptoms were very acute. I couldn't walk without a cane. I had trouble hearing noises. Everything sensory that you can imagine was challenging me. And she said, we treat normally, all of our patients have one of your diagnoses, but half of them have two. But we're so happy to invite you. We want you to be our patient. And I burst into tears. And I remember saying, you want this 3-legged, one-eyed dog? Because I felt so deficient in my skin. I felt that I wasn't myself. So the hard part of the journey was negotiating with my spouse and my family in how that was going to look. And so I fought. I do have to say that I had to fight against their inclination to listen to the first doctor that wanted me to wait a year. Wait a year when she gave me 2 to 5 years to live. And I said, that is my meter you're running. And I wouldn't and couldn't accept it. So I moved by myself to San Francisco, and I walked our talk. I moved into the beautiful Carlisle community, Sunrise Senior Living Community, a block, about a mile, I should say, um, from the UCSF Neurological Center. And with that, I was able to have the medical director and the care managed at the Carlisle with the UCSF specialists. And I was automatically admitted as a full care assisted living resident. And so my experience was the experience that, all of our residents have. I had full medication management. I had the highest level of care on a daily basis. And through that experience, I was really blessed and fortunate with the experts at UCSF. And they said, we really disagree. We know her, we know your original neurologist, but we don't believe you have frontotemporal degeneration. And of course, at this point, I was a skeptic, right? I was like, well, wait a second, I need to know and see and how. And they said, well, you were diagnosed with this temporal epilepsy, focal epilepsy from your specialist, but it wasn't being treated. Well, they aggressively treated my epilepsy from May until September. And I wear my medical bracelet. I don't have generalized seizures, as most of us think about. And I've learned a lot about epilepsy, and I evidently had it my whole life. So if any of you know me, and I might have been looking off to the side in a contemplative thinker, and you gave me a lot of credit for thinking, I was actually having a seizure. And since they have treated this epilepsy, all of the symptoms have gone away. And I am actually better than ever. And I'm able to live in this new normal where I realized my brain was stressed and overworking. And the seizures had become so frequent. I was evidently having hundreds of the seizures a day. And that was why I had all of these symptoms of the brain degeneration. And since that stabilization, my husband and I made a decision to not live in San Francisco. I didn't need any more day-to-day assisted living. And we decided to move to Scottsdale. And we're continuing our journey where I walk the talk. We're moving into a Revel community, Revel Legacy in Northern Scottsdale. And what's so beautiful about this community is, I'm going to quote my husband. He said, Fara, you do need to go back to work. You're 60 years old. You have so much to offer, but I will have a place where I won't feel so alone. And he has his friends. So over the course of these several months that we've been in Scottsdale, Revel's done a great job. And I know that anyone that's watching this should take note. They've brought together, the two communities are opening, and about 50 of us residents that are the early depositors, we're all getting to know each other. And it is independent living, but as I watch and see the current trend toward independent living with services brought in, I know that we will be able to age in place till the end of our life.
Cool. Okay, so let's and this is going to be sort of my setup question, right? So you're ready to go back to work, is that right?
I am so ready to go back to work.
So what are you going to do?
Well, I've fielded quite a few offers throughout my journey, and I kept telling people I was retired, but I was so deeply honored when you came to me several weeks ago and said, Fara, would you join my team? And would you come back? Because you and I have done different projects and worked together over the years. And it was the greatest compliment to me to be able to help the senior living Foresight, because I look at what you're doing as like a universe, and I see things three-dimensional. And if you're watching us today, you know that there are fabulous emails that remind you of this universe in our senior living Foresight world. And what I'm excited about is the future that you're visioning, and I'm going to be able to help you with that.
Yeah. So I want to actually I'm going to sort of take over the stage here for just a few minutes, and I want to talk to the audience a little bit about what we're working on, what we've been working on. There are a few folks that I have talked to about none of it's like deep, dark, secret kind of thing. They just haven't been ready to be revealed. But we have our business model has always been really focused in two areas. The first has been to provide great content that helps senior living leaders lead better, believing that when they lead better, they take better care of their teams, particularly the frontline team members, and that they have higher occupancy, lower turnover, and better cultures. So that continues. That's been from the day we started. It continues to be our overarching dream for the industry. And so we spend a lot of time saying, what else can we do? And about a year ago, I came across a platform that uses text messaging to teach classes. And I thought, what a cool idea. And then I started thinking, well, what is it that senior living could really use? Well, the biggest challenge that I see, I mean, I know at the top level, the biggest challenge is occupancy and staff turnover. Or you might even say even bigger than that, it's the bottom line that's really, really suffering. But what we know is that when you have teams that love coming to work every day, which means they love working with each other, the bottom line gets better, costs go down, residents are happier, buildings are fuller, but it's not easy to lead. And as we have grown in the last year, one of the things that I've learned is that it's a whole lot easier to write about, to talk about leadership than it is to be successful at doing. It's hard work because everybody's got their own ideas and their own needs. And so how do I, as a leader, make sure we continue the mission and take care of my team and make it so that they're happy coming to work? And there are lots of things, they're mostly little things. It starts with how you think about what you do. But one of the ideas that we got was that we know that if you have just a single friend at work, you like coming to work a lot better. And so we thought, what if we created a simple to execute, implement team building series that was delivered by text? And we started out saying we'll do one every other week. We decided that was probably too fast. And so we've got this new product we're getting ready to roll out that will every single week you get a text from us. 2 to 3 weeks, you'll get some simple, easy leadership wisdom advice. And then on the third week, you will get a activity that you can do in your stand-up meetings. You could do it with a small group. You could do it with a large group. And the whole idea is to help people like their coworkers better. Now, if you're in an organization that's crummy or you're a crummy leader, well, if you're a crummy leader, you're probably not watching this, right? And but this won't solve all your problems. But if you're looking at it and saying, I'm leading good and I want to be better and I want to give a gift to my team that will build my team in the coming year, this will be perfect. And then one of the early adopters that we were talking about said, well, how about if you actually created a different program where once a week you would send out a text message to frontline workers, giving them a discussion prompt, because this particular person said, I've got a building and what I find is our caregivers go in and they just don't know exactly what to talk to the residents about. And so we've created this new product that you can't even go buy it yet because we're just on the process. And then we're working on a couple of other really big things that I'm not quite ready to talk about. Farah knows what they are. And so as we looked at these products, as we looked at expanding everything, continuing to support the mission of making the world of senior living better for people, I thought I reached out to Farah sort of thinking, well, maybe I can get her for a few hours a week because I knew she was mostly retired. And she said, well, you know what? I'm actually ready to go on the road and go back to work at a deeper level than that. And I know you're still working on some other things. And I said, well, then you have got to come be a part of our changing the world. And I am so excited about this. And I'm so excited about you getting out and telling the story about the things that we're doing, about growing the organization. And so now I want to actually, so that's all I'm going to say about it. You'll be hearing a lot more for us about these products, and they're coming after the first year. But I want to spend a little bit of time dreaming big about senior living in 2022 and beyond, and kind of what your thinking is.
Well, the big dream and my hope is that my own aging, I'll be 61 in March, will mirror the path of our active adults, but also our leadership. And it's all about learning, right? Lifelong learning and also applied learning. So for myself, in joining you in this very purposeful mission to grow senior living Foresight to help more organizations, I decided I needed to learn more. So I am starting a Master's of Science in Aging Innovation at Arizona State, and really excited about already involved in Arizona State. And at the same time, seeing that learning for our leadership is critical. And I've been invited to teach at Boston University in their master's program. And so the concentric circles of growth, learning, and change apply to us as individuals and leadership, but also as systems. And that's where you bring us all to the table, Steve. And my hope is that as I tap shoulders of CEOs or community leaders, that they will see the value of both the products that we're offering, but also our service partners. And I learned that critically when I helped launch Blue Willow Systems, the resident safety platform that ultimately in 2018 Philips purchased to integrate into their Lifeline product. And what I can share with you, being from operations and now innovation, is that's not the core business of an operator. The operator's core business is to ask and listen and serve. So it is absolutely imperative, if you're an operator and a leader, to think about what would it cost me to create a solution that Steve is offering or one of our partners are offering. And my hope is that I can have those deep, deep conversations with you as Steve also continues those conversations. One of the things that I value about Steve, and we've promised each other, is that he'll continue to stay innovative, because none of us can keep up with the great innovation that's happening with our global community. But again, as I had shared with you, I'm walking the talk. I don't want to live at home alone. And all of us have done that in the last 2 years in some form or another. So I am even doubling down on how community life truly supports wellness, longevity. And as you said, if we can engage all of those team members to truly feel like they can ask the questions that engage the residents, active, as Naomi Fowle calls, exquisite listening, and then our ability to empathically give back to the resident as a possible solution. But as most of us know, most often it's that presence, being present. And our hope is that our tools that we offer you through our Senior Living Foresight ecosystem and our partners are going to allow you the space to be able to be present to your relationships and your customer.
Yeah, Farah, this is such an important thing to talk about. Until say 2 years ago, it was me with a couple of people who were helping me part time, and then when the pandemic hit, we had tremendous growth. We were very blessed. It's sort of hard to talk about because I know there was so much tragedy, but we had this growth because we were making a difference in the industry in this terrible, terrible time. And so we started adding people. And the biggest reason we added people was that I was spending too much time doing things that were not my where I could bring the most value to the audience. And there were other people who were frankly just better at that stuff than I was. And so having you is really a part of that growth, about saying, you know, I do an okay job selling. I've built a business by doing most of the selling. Lola Rain has helped with that, but you really are a sales expert, and it's an area that we need. And it's not, I mean, certainly the bottom line is important, but at the end of the day, it's really about making the industry better. And so as I think about this, I want to give you what's my current, and I'm actually working on a keynote that's kind of based on this idea, is on the drive home from Santa Barbara at the Empath, close enough that I get one of those rare conferences I get to drive to and back. Kent Mulkey and I were a little bit hungry, and we were coming through, I don't know, Santa Maria or someplace, and we stopped at In-N-Out Burger. And so we decided we wanted In-N-Out Burger. So I fired it up. We pulled off the freeway. And you know what I found when I got to In-N-Out Burger? They had a line of people waiting to get in. And so it moved pretty fast, but we had to wait 5 or 6 minutes before we could place our order. And we moved right through, and they were happy, and they understood what we wanted, even though I ordered off menu, or off the secret menu, actually. And did you know there's a secret menu at In-N-Out Burger? Yeah, so there's a secret menu at In-N-Out Burger. So I ordered off the secret menu, and we got our food, and we were on our way. But the thing that's really interesting about In-N-Out Burger right now, today, when everybody else is struggling for staff, I'm not saying it's as easy as it was, but they're not. So they have always had this policy for many, many years. They would pay $50 for a referral for somebody to come to work for them. You know what they pay today? $50. They have not had to change that, because you know what? If you're going to work in the fast food restaurant world, would you rather work at McDonald's or Taco Bell or Carl's Jr., or would you rather work at In-N-Out? In-N-Out wants you to love coming to work. They want it to be fun. They want it to be family. They see their team as an asset. I know that we at Senior Living Foresight, you and me and the rest of the team, Rebecca and Leanne and Jack and Pam and Lola and Rachel, we cannot change the whole industry. But you know what? We can help a few senior living operators become the In-N-Out Burger of senior living, where you won't have trouble finding people to work for you, because it'll be a cool, fun place to work. Your residents will stand in line to get into your building instead of struggling for your residents. You won't be complaining about lead aggregation. And, we have a partner, Caring.com, that's a lead aggregator, and we love them, and we think they do an important job of filling units that otherwise wouldn't get full. So I don't want to take anything away from them. But imagine what it would be like if you were so full that you never had to pay another lead aggregator or fee, because you were doing such a good job, because you had people lined up. And that's really my dream for a few companies in 2022. Mm-hmm. And it may sound harsh, because honestly, if you as a leader accomplish that in your community, in a local level, or in your marketplace, if you're a regional or a corporate organization, Tom, that's right. Culture eats strategy for breakfast every day. 100% believe that. If you make that happen, you're actually going to make it worse for your competitor, because they're going to have a harder time hiring. They're going to have fewer residents, and the people they do hire are not going to be as good. And I don't feel badly about that, because if enough of you do that, it will raise the bar for everybody. They will be forced to do the same thing. And you know what? If we do that, there will actually be more people who want to go live in senior living. They will say, we want to be there. That's a place. Look at you. One of the things I love about you moving in and still working there is there's such great stigma. I don't want to live there. It should be that. It should be a great place to live. So that's my soapbox. And
90% of our market is the home. That's where I look at 90% of the market. And now, as the isolation of COVID has created even more demand for what it means to be in community. And I can only share from my very personal experience the struggle that my family had my husband had, my home caregiver. And I always talk about, I love home care, and I understand Medicare is now going to start to pay for home care. But when you think about, for me, I was such a diminished person that my caregiver would show up very happily every day, but say to me, because my husband would leave the house, well, what do you want me to do for you today? And I didn't have anyone to really supervise that caregiver. And so it amplified for me, the testimonial of the value of the priceless value of community.
Yep. This is so true. We have this, we have this great opportunity to transform so many, so many lives. Tom, I love the quote what you wrote, that people are organization's greatest asset. I believe that to be true. And James Ree, who keynoted Argentum, who we had on Foresight TV a few weeks ago, he talks about this a lot, that most businesses look at their people as a liability, as a cost center, and they are the greatest asset you have. You know that if you've ever gone to an In-N-Out Burger, or if you go to the other end, if you've ever stayed at a Ritz-Carlton, where they just treat you so well and they make you feel loved and cared for and helped. And we can do that. I've been a senior living consumer and on the edge of it, and just in the last few weeks with my father, and he's in a better than average nursing home. I'm not going to name them, better than average, but it's really clear that the way they have set up their organization is they expect their patients to get with their program rather than coming to the patients and saying, how can we give you the best possible experience? And our job at Senior Living Foresight, Fara, you and me, our job is to give senior living leaders the best possible experience as they lead, as they transform. And so I'm so excited that you're traveling that journey as part of our team. It's going to be an amazing year.
Excited.
So
I'm so excited when I think of technology. We're talking about technology, we're talking about innovation. I went to Japan 2 years ago for a month, and I saw how the Japanese culture was using technology, but it wasn't to replace necessarily the human touch. And when I look at many of our partners and the solutions that we want to present, it is to enable a level of task efficiency to allow the caregiver to still touch and still listen with their ears and still be present as a human being to another human being. And that, to me, is that priceless value of what it means to be in community.
Yep. And ultimately, and you and I have had this conversation so many times offline, but I worry so often. I see because we're a business that has attracted real estate people, right? And so there's this idea of building more beautiful buildings, and there's nothing wrong with beautiful buildings. I do get that, but you can have a beautiful building with a terrible program, no sense of community, just a building, and it's a terrible life experience. And you can actually have an older, maybe even kind of rundown, crummy building, but if you can create this sense of identity and meaning and significance in that building. There's a building in Seattle that does this, and they're full all the time. So it's everybody's opportunity, and we're here to support you as leaders to make that happen, and to make it easy. We don't want to substitute for you, just as you said, Fara. We want to be that technology that helps you do the stuff that you're really better at than anybody else. So,
that's right. I mean, my experience certainly in advising investors was to almost scare them, and if there are investors watching, they know that I would be really clear that this is not the same real estate as your multifamily home. And as they took the journey into what it meant to actually be an owner, a company that'll remain nameless, I got a call on Christmas Day from the CEO saying, why did this family call me? And I said, well, what did they say? I had to ask a question. What
Right.
did they want? And it was a very, from this person's perspective as CEO of the real estate company, very trivial. No one should ever call me on Christmas Day. And how did they get my number? And I had to give him feedback. I said, your real estate website has your phone number on it. I said, is that the only phone call you received today on Christmas Day? He goes, yes. And I said, then you're really lucky, because 100 souls that are living in the community, and 50 of them are apart from their families that live in other places. And all of those stressors that we know our families deal with and our residents on a daily basis creates often an urgent call to help me. And that particular family felt a need to call the CEO that owned this community. And he said, well, I don't want this to ever happen again. And I want you to call the family and tell them not to call me. And I said, I'm sorry, sir, I won't do that.
Yeah.
I said, I will make sure they have my phone number. But if in the future you don't want to talk to someone, don't answer the phone. But it was a difficult conversation, a candid conversation, because this is not like any other real estate. But when a real estate investor does love it and falls in love with it, you can see that they understand that priceless value, that they're truly impacting thousands of people. If I have 100 residents, I've probably got 8 other influencers, and that influence will ripple through their lives as well. And hopefully they will be our future customer.
Yeah. Well, and I think about the story you told about a CEO getting a call on Christmas Day. I look at that and I think, if they were so upset that they were willing to call you, that they felt the need to call you on Christmas Day, you probably have a real problem that you need to go figure out how to fix, because people don't make those kinds of calls on Christmas Day unless there's a real problem. And so they should be, so in my view, they should be profoundly grateful that they heard back. I mean, I will tell you that at Senior Living Foresight, we get every week we get emails or messages through social media about how much people appreciate the stuff we're doing, and I would never want you to stop that. I pass that on to the team. It keeps us going. It helps us know we're doing the right thing. But I would say every few weeks, maybe once a month, I get an email or a message from somebody that says, I think you're an idiot, or maybe not usually that strong, or I think you're completely wrong about this. And I love those messages because it provides an opportunity to have dialogue. It forces me to think about things and to go, maybe I didn't get that right. And if you've been a longtime reader, you will know that occasionally I'll publish an article where I said this a long time ago, and now I'm not sure I got that right. This is what I'm thinking it's like today. And is that wrong? I don't know. Maybe sometimes it's wrong, or maybe sometimes the world has just shifted. We certainly do things much differently today. Some of it's because of growth, and some of it because the world of senior living is different. So, Fara, I can't tell you how excited I am to have you back as part of the team. We are going to just continue to have this amazing positive impact. I feel like I'm doing sort of an end of year, but and that we're not quite there yet. But I will say that I appreciate, as we've gone through 8 or 10 conferences in the last few months, and I've had conversations with so many of you, I just appreciate the feedback and the input coming out of just these conferences. I've got so much to write about, so many things that we're going to do that'll make the industry even better. So, any last words?
I just wish everyone a wonderful, blessed 2022. It is every year we get to strive to do our best. And I hope that, whoever's listening today understands that in our servant leadership position here at Senior Living Foresight, we're here to help you serve your families, your residents, your employees and associates, build up your culture. This is what we do. It's the core of our mission. And I'm honored to be back here on the team.
Yeah. So I'm going to actually put up one more comment. I'm not going to go into great detail about it because it's sort of something I'm thinking a lot about. But Tom, you say it's the CEO's response, his behavior sets the behavior standard for the organizations. I want to say to you, I want to say very broadly that you need to be thoughtful about the things you put up on social media, because I see things put on social media that I think are so demotivating to frontline workers who are doing that really, really hard, that really compassionate, that loving thing. So before you post that picture of you, at the Ritz Carlton with a $400 bottle of wine. You've worked hard. I'm not saying you don't deserve that, but if you're making $13 an hour in a building and you see that, you might not think you're very loved by your CEO. And so I've through this holiday season, I've seen several of those kinds of posts, and they just kind of make me cry and make me cringe. And so I would just offer that as something to be thought about. And with that, Fara, thank you very much. I love you. I love all of you who are watching.
You.
And
I love
we
you
love,
too, and I love what
we
we
love the
do.
opportunity to make a difference, to be a small part of your life. So